But Israel is confirming that it has attacked Houthi targets in Yemen for a second straight day. The IDF saying it hits the international airport in Sana'a and has fully disabled it. This video showing smoke rising around the airport. The IDF says it struck several other targets around the capital, all in retaliation for a Houthi-fired missile that landed on the grounds of Israel's main international airport over the weekend. We are following the story very closely. We've got Jeremy Diamond back with us. Jeremy, we're seeing these images of the smoke coming through from Sana'a. Give me a sense of what we know right now and the targets.
Well, Eleni, these are some of the most significant Israeli strikes in Yemen that we have seen to date, and the second round of strikes within just 24 hours. All of these strikes over the last 24 hours have been in retaliation for that Houthi ballistic missile attack that struck right next to Israel's International Ben Gurion Airport on Sunday. You can see several plumes of smoke rising within and around the Yemeni capital of Sana'a, including from the airport itself, where the Israeli military has confirmed that it did indeed carry out strikes directly on the airport, targeting the runways, aircraft, and infrastructure at the airport. They say that it has now fully disabled the airport itself. These strikes were carried out about an hour after the Israeli military issued an unprecedented evacuation order for that Sana'a International Airport in Yemen, sending passengers and crew and staff scrambling in that hour before the Israeli military began carrying out those strikes. Not only striking Sana'a International Airport, but also a cement factory, which was also struck last night in the first round of Israeli strikes there, as well as several power stations across the Yemeni capital. So these are some very significant strikes. We haven't yet gotten reports of casualties. The question now is whether this Israeli response will indeed continue, and whether or not we will ultimately see Israeli strikes against Iran as well. There has been pressure on the Israeli prime minister, both from within his government as well as from leaders of the opposition, to level a cost on Iran for its role in funding and supporting these Houthi militants in Yemen, with the Israeli prime minister and others saying that they hold Iran directly responsible for these ongoing Houthi attacks. But certainly a very significant situation, heavy strikes in Yemen, and of course the potential for this back and forth between the Houthis and Israel to very much continue.
Joining us now to discuss the retired U.S. Army General Wesley Clark. He served as NATO's Supreme Allied Commander. General Clark, thanks so much for joining us. As you know, the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, says the attacks fully disabled the Yemen airport. Do you foresee the Houthis retaliating? And how likely is it that this clash between Israel and Yemen could grow beyond the Houthis to eventually include Iran, the major supplier of arms and support for the Houthis?
I think it is likely the Houthis will try to retaliate. I'm not sure if they have the capacity to do that. They declared an air embargo against Israel, so Israel is going to make sure that they are militarily dominant against the Houthis. So if the Houthis respond, Israel will shut it down. The United States has got to decide what it wants to do in this region. Is it going to get successful talks with Iran? And if so, is that going to lead to suspension of assistance to the Houthis and eventually dampen the Houthis' ability to strike back? We don't know that. All that stuff is up in the air, but I do think the administration should be taking naval measures to shut down the seaborne resupply to the Houthis, which has been ongoing and has not been interrupted. Will it be a larger war? It could be, but it has to really be focused by the United States on the nuclear capacity of Iran. That's what the key issue is in this region.
The U.S. and Israel, as you know, General, have been targeting the Houthis now for several weeks. So is it surprising that the Houthis are still able to strike Israel, as they did in recent days with this missile attack against Ben Gurion Airport and potentially other targets in the region as well?
It's a little surprising, Wolf, but and we've hit 800 targets apparently there. But on the other hand, this is a big country. There's 20 million people there. It's been under airborne attack for 10 years from the Saudis and the Emiratis first before we did it. and so they've got pretty good measures to conceal, to protect, and so forth. If you really want to go after them, you're probably going to have to put some special forces in on the ground to finish up the targeting and really go after them.
The IDF confirms that Israel has targeted Yemen's main international airport and several power plants in the capital of Sana'a. This marks a second consecutive day of strikes. The IDF says the attacks are in response to a Houthi ballistic missile that disrupted flights at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel on Sunday. With us now, CNN military analyst, retired U.S. Army Major General James Spider. Mark Spider, we're seeing some of this footage of these strikes inside Sana'a, the capital here. The back and forth at this point, is there something Israel could do to get the Houthis to stop?
John, very difficult task. Look, the Saudis tried to get the Houthis to stop over the course of about a decade. They did some significant damage, but the Houthis are immensely resilient, stockpiles of capabilities and support certainly from Iran. Now, that support from Iran has diminished, certainly, but the Houthis still exist in a certain amount of capabilities, and they do have additional sources. So you have to define what you're really trying to achieve, and what the IDF is doing here is this is a step, clearly, in a sequence of steps to dilute that capability that the Houthis have, but the Houthis will still maintain a capacity to do kinds of disruption that we've seen before. But I think it's a great opportunity on Israel's part. If they've got the great targeting intelligence, they've got the capacity to strike. This kind of strike will continue. We can expect it, but we're going to see it continue over the course of time. There won't be an end state that's going to look much different than this, unfortunately.